Hello, InvestHER community. This is Liz. So excited to be doing these Facebook Lives once a month, or as much as we possibly can, with all of you amazing women. So I want you to say hello as you join us. Please say your name, where you're from. But I'd love to hear from all of you. And we're going to have just a great session today. I'm going to introduce her in a moment. We have Tanya, one of our InvestHER Meetup leaders from Virginia Beach, with me, and we're going to talk about something that many of us are challenged with, and I know I am, about feeling stuck sometimes. And we're going to talk that through together and give you some tips, as we always do with the InvestHER community, and what we're up to, Andres and I are up to, in trying to provide as much value with, and really our mission is to empower women to live a financially free and balanced life. So these once a month Facebook Lives, I'll be interviewing a meetup leader or one of our members or one of our volunteers or someone, and really giving some value around something that will be helpful to you to put into action. So that's the goal of these monthly meetups, and obviously share the good stuff that we're up to. So as you're joining, I see some people joining. Please share your name, where you're from. You have to accept StreamYard to basically, so I know what your name is. Sometimes it just says Facebook user. So if you don't mind accepting those permissions, but please share your name, where you're from, and just give us a shout out. Love to see that. I love engagement. I'd rather be seeing you all in person, but we're doing this in the technical world we're in. So as you're joining, please say hello, and I'd love for you to do that. So I want to get started because I want to be very mindful of time. Everything that Andres and I do, we're pretty mindful of time because we want to be respectful of all your time. And thanks for being here on time for the 2:00 Facebook Live. So what we have going on today, again, my name is Liz. For those who don't know me, I'm one of the co-founders of the Real Estate InvestHER community. We have a podcast. We have meetups, which we're going to get to here in a moment. Tanya's one of our meetup leaders. We have a growing community. And hey, Colleen, how are you? I needed to see someone's name and someone saying hello. Now I feel like we got people watching. Hey, Erica, how are you? Very cool. Thanks for being on. Very cool. Hey, Belinda, nice to see you too. Some names I'm recognizing, so that's awesome. So thanks for being on, ladies. So as we always like to do is bring on someone. I want to do this. We're doing this once a month, and we do this consistently. And I'm going to bring someone on to really talk through challenges they're working through as an InvestHER, and also then how to move through them, and hopefully really give you some nuggets and some action. The worst thing you could do is be involved in anything that we are offering in terms of content, podcasts, meetups, membership, whatever you're involved in, and not do anything with it, right? So we're all about really taking action, just one step towards your goal. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Tanya on. Hey, Tanya.
Hello, Liz. Hello, ladies.
Thank you for being on here with me. As we embark on these monthly Facebook Lives, I really wanted to have Tanya on for one of our first sessions here in Facebook Lives, because Tanya's doing a fantastic job as our meetup leader. So we really appreciate you and all that you're doing in Virginia Beach. You got Erica on too. Hey, Erica, who's probably attends your meetup, I would hope, right? Which is awesome. So share with the ladies listening to Tanya how long you've been a meetup leader, why you even joined us as a meetup leader. I'm sure you didn't have anything else to do, right? So you just figured, hey, might as well do this, right? I'm totally joking. Bad joke here, ladies. I have a lot of bad jokes. I'm really not that funny. But share with us who you are, when you joined us with being a meetup leader, and then we're going to get into around this idea of feeling unstuck, which is the topic of today, which is the value we want to give to all the wonderful women listening. So without further ado, if you don't mind sharing that.
Awesome, Liz. Thank you so much. Well, yes, I am in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia, as you stated. And I have been a real estate agent, but as a residential, but not as an investor. So, but I, was looking to investing, and it was like, okay, well, where can I go to learn information? I went to Bigger Pockets. I was been on Bigger Pockets for a couple of years, and I saw a meetup in a local area where I'm in with Virginia Beach, where Tala was hosting. So I was like, okay, let me go. And so the first meetup that I actually went to, that we was in person then, It was actually, we had what you call a winter storm. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, great. Right? So, so I was debating about, oh my goodness, should I go out there? Shouldn't I? Because this would be my first time stepping out.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, well, I was like, okay, well, let me just go ahead and go anyway. So I went there, and it just felt so comfortable, and it was an intimate session, and Erica was actually the presenter on that one. And so we had a wonderful time, and I just enjoyed it. So I kept in touch with Taylor, and she was doing the meetups. That's when we started doing virtual. And then unfortunately, Taylor, was going a different path, and she um asked me, she was like, well, you've been been attending the meetups. Do you want to be a meetup leader? I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, am I really ready? I was and I was in the process of networking with other investors, and stepping out of my comfort zone. And then I was like, okay, well, oh my goodness, I have to do something. So I said yes. And so that's where you and Liz, we started communicating. I was like, okay, this is awesome. And one of my other investor ladies was like, that's a good opportunity for you. So I was like, okay. So that's where I'm at. And so I started my first meetup in October 2020 last year.
Yeah.
And been virtual ever since then. But I really, hoping that this year, later on, that we could get together again, and have some physical activities going on in our meetup, because I do have a lot of ideas that I want to do with our group.
Yeah.
So that's how I started, and it's
Awesome.
been wonderful since then.
Very cool. Very cool. And our goal, ladies, is to actually have a meetup in every part of this country and this world, so women can really give and get support. And we're doing an informational call next Wednesday. So please join us. I'll put it in the comments at some point if you want to join us. Just information about meetups and what it looks like to be a meetup leader. We'll have some meetup leaders on there with me to talk a little bit about it. But it's really a way to give and get support locally, and then obviously building. Our goal is to have a worldwide community of just badass women helping each other grow our wealth and grow our finances. So for you, Tanya, when it comes to your real estate investing goals, what is your current real estate investing goal? And then we're going to talk about where you've gotten stuck and how you've personally been able to move through that. Because, everyone's journey is different. Everyone gets stuck. I even get stuck in the things that I'm working on. And it's not that we're going to avoid getting stuck, but what do you do when you feel stuck, and how long do you feel stuck, right? Because if you're feeling stuck for a week, that just, pretty much sucks, right? That's not a good thing. So, so what's your current goal? Let's start there. What are you currently focused on? What's your current, landscape of what you're going after?
Yeah, my current goal is to attain multifamilies, small multifamilies in my local area. That's where my current goal was at. And 2 to 4 units. And then, later on, I did want to scale up to larger multifamilies, but that's where I started. Because when I first started investing, that people were saying, single families, in the realm of single families, and I was like, no, I need, because at my current life stage, I need to increase that. So I need to start bigger than that, and then surrounding myself with people that dream bigger, talk bigger, and I was like, okay, well, I could probably do that. And then when I started feeling stuck is when I was trying to network, because it's not my comfort zone. I'm an introvert, so
I know that basis your personality assessment results, right?
Yeah, so it's just hard for me to approach people. But once I know you, and I'm comfortable just talking to you. It's like so it's just getting that foot in the door. That's where I was getting stuck at. So um I surrounded myself with positive people that would help me network. And so that's how I got unstuck and feeling comfortable in networking, because then I knew like the company they kept.
Yep.
And so, and then I learned how to, okay, well, if networking is too much for me, I scaled back a little bit and then focus on, my goal on how to increase my what you call that, value to other people uh, more. So that's where I've been in. So I've been, learning that, and about education is also a thing that I always, because I always been, I guess, what you call that, a lifestyle, style educator. I love reading books. I was always a bookworm, but intimate, putting that into practice was
Yeah.
a little harder for me.
Right.
So I had to surround myself with people that helped me to put it into practice, encourage me to go on, and knowing that even though if I uh, didn't reach it, there's like, well, at least you attempted,
Mm-hmm.
So that was big things for me to go forward.
Yeah. And it's so important. Like, networking, especially virtually, right, is like, it takes a lot of thought. It takes a lot of mindfulness. It takes a lot of strategy. It takes a lot of just taking the time to think. It's just not going to happen by osmosis, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just going to go on a Zoom call. And, it's just like, you have to really think about, where are the people that I need to be? Who are the people I want to be networking with? Number one question. And I always like to say, in order to answer that question, what's your goal? Because if you don't have the goal, you could be hanging out with Airbnb, hosts, but your goal is multifamily, or so. And it sounds kind of like, well, who would do that, Liz? People do it all the time.
Yeah.
They do it all the
Yeah.
time. They're involved in events and groups that literally have nothing to do with their focus. So
Mm-hmm.
the number one thing, ladies, if you're listening, and we all could do this better. I know me personally, I could also do this better. If my focus is one thing, if I want to buy a vacation rental, I made that very clear. That's one of my goals this year. I need to start networking with people who are selling the properties I want to potentially buy in the areas I want to buy in. That seems like a logical thing, right? But have I done that in the last month? No, I have not. I've allowed other things in my life to kind of, I need to do a better job at that, right? I need to schedule it. So for you, how did you then say, you want to buy a small multi? Networking is not necessarily your natural strong suit, although I would disagree with you, because people in networking who are very too much for people don't seem trustworthy. And you're one of the most trustworthy people I know, Tanya. So once you get to know people, them, like you're very sincere. So I think sincere people actually do very well with networking once they get over the hurdle of networking. You know what I mean? Because you're so sincere. If you say to me, Liz, oh, I know someone that can help you, I know I'll get an email, because you're that kind of follow through type of person. You do what you say, And in networking, that's the most important thing. So for you though, you saw that as a gap. What did you actually do? How did you move through that? Multifamily is my goal. I know networking is not as comfortable to me. And you got some support from people. What were those action steps, those specific action steps that you took to help mitigate that, if you will?
Yes. Well, I took it one step at a time. I reached out to one person that said, yes, yeah, let's hop on a call. So I was like, oh, wonderful.
Wow, this networking thing works.
so, so then, we talked, and just like, we conversation, she was like, so what are your goals? What are you thinking of? What is your, um, mostly your end goal?
Yeah.
Did you want to be like an investor for the rest of your life, passively, or did you want to actively, So she, had me thinking more, but like, okay, well, what did I really want to do? Because, people say, investor and multifamily, single family, landlord, but what will make you happy?
Mm.
So, yeah, so she, she had me thinking about that, and I was like, okay, well, what would make me happy? So I was like, well, this is at the time now I want to be active because I want to learn the ropes, what's going on. I'm a little control freak too. So,
Yeah, I can't relate to that at all. No woman on this live can relate to that, being a control freak. It's in the woman's DNA, not to be stereotypical, but
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like, at now I'm being active. I want to know the process of it. And so she's like, okay, well, I know somebody that could probably, you talk to and can help you out a little bit, to understand the multifamily. So I was like, okay. So she connected me with that person. Then that person connected me to another person. And so now, it's like evolving and come full circle. Just about because now I'm in the Facebook groups with them, conversating. We message every now and then saying, how you doing, what you doing this month or something like that. And that's how it started networking for me. And there are times when I was like, okay, well, sometimes I have to step back from Facebook and be like, okay, it's a little too much right now. I had to.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I think we lost Tanya for a minute here. I'm going to continue on. She just froze. At least she was smiling when she froze. That's a positive. I'm going to give her a minute here. But yeah, I mean, I think in so many ways, hopefully she knows she froze. I don't know if I could tell her. Gotta love technology. Everyone stay with us here for a second. I'm going to remove her from the stream here. Yeah, she's still frozen. Let me just message her real quick and then I'll continue on because I want to actually follow up with a few things here. Okay, let me start. She's frozen. Okay, I'm gonna remove her for a second. She was laying down some great information. You gotta love technology, everybody. But what Tonya was talking about that was so powerful was in a lot of ways being able to network piece by piece, take action. She was just saying she spoke to someone and then they recommended somebody else. And her goal, again, if you missed this, is to buy a multifamily property in her area, Virginia Beach. And then we were kind of talking through how she's gotten over a little bit of her own fears, if you will. Way to freeze, I know, right? Yeah, I completely agree. If you're going to freeze on technology, you got to be smiling. But anyway, so when it comes to networking, you can get stopped a lot because it's just like I said, it's very difficult right now. You have to work a little harder. So the number one thing is, what is your goal? All right. And we talk about this, but what is your goal? What is your main focus right now in terms of your investing goal? What is it right now? Specifically, what are you looking to achieve? If you don't start there, then everything else is not going to help you. The more focused you are, the more networking is going to actually be helpful for you. And sometimes you may not know all of that, but I think a lot of people do. So getting focused is helpful. I know for me, I'm just speaking personally, I'm looking to buy a property in 3 different areas. I want to buy a vacation rental and I'm looking at 3 different potential areas. So that's where I'm in the networking phase of just talking to people in those areas. What makes sense, what doesn't make sense. So that's where I am. The next thing is, as you refine your goal, the opportunities to network is going to become even more clear. So we're going to keep holding tight. I'm going to keep ad-libbing questions. Who's getting stuck and where are you getting stuck? Just like all of us. Tanya mentioned she got stuck a little bit when it came to networking and she knew she needed to move through that. So for the ladies on, I'd love to hear from you. Please put it in the chat box. Where are you getting stuck? And let's talk through some action steps, right? Some specific action steps to help you move through wherever you're getting stuck. May or may not be networking. That was just her example, but it could be other things. And I think momentum creates momentum, if you will. And the more of it you get, it just makes you feel more confident. So if you can, I'd love to hear from you ladies. Please share where you're getting stuck or the support you need, because that's what this Facebook Live was meant to do, was to talk through with Tanya where she was getting stuck and also give you all some ideas to move through that. So if you don't have any questions, all right, there we go. Talk. I will just keep rolling because I'm good at that. Okay, hold on. I got Tanya here back. Hey,
Okay.
Tanya.
Hey, I don't know. I don't know. I shut it down on my on my
No
laptop.
worries. Thank you for. I get stuck staring. Okay, there we go. Okay, I asked for some volunteers. I was going to start ad libbing, but I'm good at that. I'll talk about anything you want. But Erica says, "Hey, Erica, I get stuck staring at too many opportunities. Which ones to pursue?" That's a big one, right? Because we can just sometimes be in paralysis by analysis. Um, and there's no right or wrong here. I think the more opportunities you look at, if I could just give my 2 cents, and I don't know if has that happened to you, Erica? Not Erica, I'm sorry, Tanya. Has that happened to you? What Erica's saying?
Yes.
Okay, why don't
Yeah.
you answer it first, and then I'll give my 2 cents if that's great. Let's both give our insight and give some ideas.
Yes. Too many opportunities. Yes. Because getting ourselves out there and be like, okay, well, this is what we need to do sometimes. Like, I look at single family and multifamily, but I was like, which one is best for me? Which one would help me to attain my goal fastest? I still fall into that and doing analysis, paralysis,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to get stuck in that rut. So sometimes I have to weigh the options. Which one will be best for me to go after at
Yeah.
this moment to help me with my goal?
Yeah. Yeah. And I would also say when you find yourself looking at too many opportunities, there's never the perfect opportunity. Just so you know. And it's hard, right? Because I know for myself, I want this like perfect opportunity with the right cash flow in a perfect area that I can use 1 week. And I have all my criteria. We talk about having investment criteria. I have my criteria, right? But it's fascinating with real estate. And I always like to say this to folks is that once you get that, especially if it's that first deal, once you get momentum going, it doesn't have to be a home run. I'm not saying suggest you buy a property and lose money. That's a bad thing, right? However, taking action, right? Taking action on that investment property, like you're saying, Tanya, single family home versus a duplex. And if I can make some progress with a single family home, we got to keep the end in mind. And so many times we get so focused, like this one property is going to create everything I need out of this business. I just don't know anyone like that. What that one property will do is it's going to create momentum for you. And again, you want to mitigate your risk. Obviously, you don't want to get into a property that is obviously going to be the worst investment you'd ever make. But I don't think that's the case. If you're looking at a lot of opportunities, Erica, you're probably ready to pull the trigger. So what's the right property to pull the trigger? Who can you run it by? And here's a great thing to do too. If you are a cautious person and you know that about yourself, and Tanya, you are more cautious, right? Because I know your predictive index. We have our members take a predictive index results. So I know kind of everyone's PI. If you're a cautious person, one person you should be networking with or someone who's like a confidant for you or a colleague of yours should be a risk taker. Who you're running these opportunities by, Erica. In other words, if you know you're going to like go back and forth and look at the pros and cons of every opportunity, you want to present that to, or at least run it by, at least the ones you really like, by somebody who's more of a risk taker. Because you know what they're going to do? They're going to push you a little bit more than maybe you'll push yourself. I know for me, I'm not a logical person. So Andressa is really helpful for me because she is very logical. She looks at things very black and white, and I look at things in the gray all the time. And I need someone who helps me see things black and white. So I'd say the same thing for you, Erica. Make sure you have somebody in your corner who's a little more, again, depending on where you are on the spectrum, is a risk taker. Is somebody obviously that knows real estate, right? It's not just a risk taker, knows nothing about real estate investing. I'm not saying that, but it should be somebody who's qualified to give an opinion about that property or that opportunity. And that can help you make that call. If you think it's a good call and you've looked at as many opportunities as you have, it probably is a good opportunity. Trust yourself too. So that's my 2 cents. But thanks for being on here. I hope that was helpful. We've got a few more questions. Let's talk about these if you don't mind. I don't know who, because this says Facebook user. So will you mysterious Facebook user? Why is the Facebook user a man? That should be a woman at least, right? The person should know it. Don't get me on my high horse here. But anyway, it says about scaling in terms of financing. So how are you handling financing? Tanya, in your planning and what you're up to, how have you approached that? And you're at the beginning stages, and then I'll speak to it about scaling, because that's kind of a lot of where we started and where we evolved to as well. So I can give some insight, but I'm just curious, how have you prepared for financing, and what are you doing in that realm?
Yes, about financing, that goes back to networking also. I Financing, I have networked with lenders, private money lenders, and hard money lenders, and also with banks. And I know the investors have a whole community, especially the membership, talking about how to, get portfolio lenders,
Mm-hmm.
to bankers, and that's how I have scaling my financing, and also because a military, that we also could utilize the VA loans.
Mm.
So, so just know the options, learn more about the options of financing and what is a right fit for you in the
Yeah.
property that you are trying to attain.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of financing, especially, we got our start using friends and family. We used their own, a little bit of our own resources, but our first deal was a duplex, and my father loaned us $30,000, and he loaned that to us with just faith. Right? It wasn't like we were these experienced real estate investors. We took 1 year of courses at a local RIA, and my father, who's Sicilian no less, right? Is Sicilian, Italian, like he's a tough guy. You look at him and you think he's like a police officer. Like he's no joke. His name's Sal.
Oh,
And he loaned us money. He loaned us 30,000 with the idea of that even though we didn't know a ton, we were young. He knew he'd get his money back and his interest, no matter what, no matter what road, we obviously 15 years later, thankfully, of course, we paid him back with his interest. But my point in saying that is that sometimes you are going to have very creative ways to finance, whether it's friends and family, whether it's what have you. But one thought process is to start to look at the investments what are the investments you're looking at? How much do they cost, right? You say, okay, I want to get into multifamily. And Tanya says, okay, what's an average cost of a multifamily, of a duplex in the areas you're looking? You're looking in Virginia Beach, Tanya?
yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
what's an average ARV? Of course, as investors, we want a deal, but right now it's a very hot market.
Yes.
So you have to remember that. But on average, what would be a reasonable amount of money to buy a duplex in the Virginia Beach area?
Is about 2 cent, well, 175.
Okay.
It's about a reasonable amount that you don't have to do a full gut
Okay.
vehicle on.
So if I was Tanya, one of the first things I would do, I know that my ARV is around 175. Now that doesn't include how much work or not work, those are all important things you have to assess, obviously, when you're looking at properties. But for the person who's asking this question, I'd also want to start looking at the banks. The community banks really are usually some of your best lenders. What is their appetite for lending? Before you even have a property under contract, if I wanted to buy a duplex in Virginia Beach, I'm going to act as though I have the right properties right around the corner. And now I want to, make about 5 calls to local lenders and start to get into that conversation of, what is your lending criteria? What do you have an appetite for? Every bank is different. So you start talking to banks like, oh, we're not lending in commercial right now. And you're like, commercial, it's a duplex. And then you're talking to the wrong person in the bank. You shouldn't be talking to the residential. You should be talking to, so it just all depends on the bank itself. But my point in saying this is that you need to talk to the right people at the right community banks, if you will, or the right banks, and see what their appetite is for lending. Now that's on the conventional side. Then you have to worry about the down money, right? And obviously banks are more stringent in, what they're loaning to, 75% loan to value. It's all over the place, but that's probably still fair for many banks. Then you're like, okay, what's 20% of 175? Math is not my strong suit, but it's got to be what? 40,000, more than for around 40 to 50,000, right? It's about 20%, right? 25%. I'm really bad at math, guys. I cannot do this off the top of my head. If it was someone else, they may be able to do it. But bottom line, you're looking at 40 to 50 just for down money. Then you're going to talk about what? The idea of renovations, all those sort of things. So then you got to think about, how do I scale from that perspective? There's creative financing approaches. There's private money, but there's also seller financing, right? We talk a lot about that in creative financing. Can that homeowner hold the note, if you will? And there's benefits to that. So if you're not familiar with seller financing, owner financing, seller financing, they're called the same thing, but they're just used, sometimes people use it differently. Start looking into that as an option. Can I partner with somebody? Another option. One of our first private money deals in terms of scaling, we had tapped out of our money. And really our family money, if you will, too. Parents' loneliness money, wherever we can get it. And our first private money kind of equity partner was a gentleman I went to college with. And I met him. We were networking. Back to your point, networking. I wasn't even talking about real estate, but he brought it up. And I'm like, this is an opportunity. We bought 2 single family homes. We put no money of our own money. We didn't put any of our own money down, but he put 50,000, and we were both partners, both active partners in that project. He had a role, we had a role. And that's another way to approach it. So there's a lot of different ways of scaling, but creativity always has to, when you talk about scaling finance from a financing perspective, I think creativity is a necessary avenue, unless you're going to just find tons of money somewhere. That's awesome if you do, but that doesn't usually happen to a lot of us. So, definitely private money, seller financing, owner financing, which is similar, are some options. But start talking to the conventional side of what their appetite is, because then you'll start to line these things up. If you have people who want to maybe be a private money partner with you, start talking to them now before you have a deal, because the quickness of properties getting sold right now is so fast. You don't have time to be like, hold on, let me think about how I'm going to finance this. The deal will not be there. I'm telling you, just the way this market is moving, it's moving so fast. So you got to line these things up, or at least in an initial way ahead of time. I hope that helps. Okay. So Tanya, I know we're kind of going off on a tangent here. We had a little more of some questions I was going to throw to you, but we've gotten some really good questions. I hope that was helpful for the Facebook user that we don't know your name of, but thank you for being on with us. In terms of your why and your motivation, how does that help you get unstuck? And tell us a little more about that. And the women listening and with us here today, how can they use that to keep them moving through feeling stuck? Because I think that's a big one, is to kind of get deep. And I'm curious what process you went through. Like, have you written that down? Do you read it every morning? Do you have it posted somewhere? Like, what is your process of how did you identify your why, and how do you keep it in front of you?
Yes. I identify my why, and I wrote it down. I have, let me see, I have 4 points for myself, my children, my household, and for my spouse, my husband.
Love it.
And I broke it down on why I want to become financial and time free. And then I put it up on my poster board in my work area in my house. And when I get stuck, I go back and read it and be like, okay, now this is what I want to do. Why I'm getting stuck? Is it because I'm afraid of getting outside my comfort zone? Then am I listening to my limited beliefs about myself? And then I normally will call someone, an accountability partner. It doesn't have to be real estate. I will call somebody that will tell me the truth about my situation. You don't want to necessarily be, when you're stuck, to hear, oh, you're okay, it will pass. Sometimes you don't need to hear that. Sometimes you want to hear, girl, get up,
You're absolutely right. It's what we need to hear versus what we want to hear, right?
Yeah. So, and then, and don't feel like, that you in a loop of
the pity party because, I called this person, I reached out and that didn't work. Get out of that and then, go to your why. And, look at your children. If you have children, look at them or your pets, be like, this is why I'm doing it. you
Yeah.
know? If you have to look at your bank account, be like, oh, I don't like that balance while I'm doing it. It's
Yeah.
and and that's how I get unstuck, because I do get down, sometimes and be like, oh, it's not working out, that I'm analyzing these properties and it's not fitting it. It's not fitting it for me. Then I'll be like, okay, let me reset. Let me sit back and think about what can I do? Just like when you was talking about, Liz, about the creative ways.
Mm-hmm.
What creative ways can I get unstuck? What can I offer? What other avenue can I take
Love it.
to get to my goal?
I love it. It's the questions you're asking, right? Because I
Mm-hmm.
know for me, if I get stuck too, I'm not like, wow, I'm stuck. Like it's like it brings you down, but like what can I do to move me through this, right? And that's why our community is so critical, right? It's like not everyone's going to have an amazing day of like making offers and getting every offer accepted and hitting a home run. I mean, none of us do. And it's just complete nonsense for anyone to even say they do. We have really tough things that happen. And it's about taking those small actions. I love that. And, I also thought when you were talking, you have to ask yourself better questions, and you're asking yourself better questions. You're not like, why am I stuck? You're saying, what creative ways can I do to get unstuck? Those are two very different questions. And I don't know about you, but why questions are just depressing. Or why am I like this? Or geez, man, I go down a really negative spiral, right? Why am I crazy? That's what I ask myself half the time. But it's true. Like, what empowering questions can you ask yourself to get unstuck? Like, I love what you said. What creative ways can I move through this? And that's why our community is so important, because it's just not all on your back,
Yeah.
It's you're in this with other women who quite honestly are wanting to create a legacy, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
wanting to create something bigger than themselves. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of us have in common. And of course, if you want to get, a nice bag and nice shoes, that's great. But, it's not just about that. It's about creating a legacy and creating something bigger than ourselves. I love what you're saying. I got another question I want to make sure I answer. And I don't know who posted this, but I want to answer it. So I just want to make sure we answer all your questions here today. And then we'll wrap up here. I get stuck investing out of state. Not sure how to find the right team in those areas. That's a big one right now. And I know, you know this too, Tanya, how many women, even in our membership, we're talking about investing out of state, especially when you're in an area that's just overdone, if you will, and expensive. And it's on the hot market list. That's when you're like, okay, unless I get this beauty of a deal that's off market, I got to start maybe looking at another market, if you will. I know that's the case for a lot of people right now. They're getting creative with where they're even looking. So what I can tell you is, for the first 8 years, we invested only locally. Within a half hour, if I couldn't drive in a half hour, we didn't invest in it. And then we got to the same point where I'm in the Northeast. We're investing in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and we're just like, we got to start looking elsewhere. So we bought a property in North Carolina. We're more in the apartment building syndication space, but we did our first purchase. Actually, it was Pennsylvania outside. It was in Lancaster, and then it was North Carolina. My point, though, is an hour and a half from our house, and we broke the rule just because the market got a little too heated where we were looking. What I can tell you is one of the two greatest team members to look on. Number one, if you have family or friends in that area, I would look at two things: up and coming markets where you have people that you trust in. And if you can marry those two together, that's a great opportunity. The area that we ended up working in, which was this county called Lancaster, if you know the Northeast, my husband's cousin, who was in real estate himself, had his own properties, became one of our team members for this property. That was an hour. He's 5 minutes from this property. We're an hour and a half. So he became one of our partners on that project. Second thing was, we found a property management company because we knew we couldn't manage it. We managed everything locally. And you're investing out of state, you got to start working with a property management company, unless you're like Wonder Woman, I don't know, or Elastigirl from what's that movie I'm thinking of? I'm not remembering it. But anyway, you're going to need to build a team of property management. So that's one of the most important team members you have. Start looking into property management companies before you found a property. So say you like Alabama, to find a property management company potentially in that area that you can start. They may know of properties that are for sale. If you start to build a relationship and you can show them that you're ready to go, you have the financing in place, take me seriously, right? That's what every broker wants to know. Can I take this person seriously? So that's 1. 2 is a real estate agent. That's investor friendly. They know the market like no one else, that local market. Those are great people to have on your team when you're not there locally. But I would say if you can find a family member or a friend that you trust with your life, who has an interest in real estate, who can maybe like be a bird dog for you. And it's an I like up and coming markets. I don't like hot markets. I don't like markets that are completely like, dismal either. We've had properties in those areas. You want an up and coming market, right? Maybe something that not everyone knows about right now or is investing in, especially in this market, our global market right now. If you can marry those two, that's a beautiful thing. Doesn't always happen. We've invested in North Carolina and Kentucky with no one locally, but we've had to rely on our property management company who we trust. And then we found someone local to be like, can you go there? They're doing renovations today on these 2 apartments. We just want somebody to walk through that has no financial interest in it either, like the owner's side. So I hope that helps. But the person the Incredibles. Thank you, Cynthia. That's what I was thinking about. Elastic Girl from The Incredibles. Watch that with my kids. I hope that helps the person who just asked the question. And, I hope that gives you some ideas. Those are 2 great team members. Also, attorneys and accountants that are local in that market also tend to know a lot of people and can connect you. Those are kind of, the people I also would start to look in terms of team members. So with that, Tanya, let's wrap up. I know we went over a little bit, but we had some lovely technical. I don't know if you know this, but when you got frozen, you were smiling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? Like a perfect smile, not like a half smile, but like a perfect smile. I'm like, if you get frozen, that's the smile that you want. So what would you say is your last few thoughts or ideas you have for our community today, and how they can, what you've done, or what you would say is do this and you'll be good to go from a feeling stuck perspective, which we all can experience? What would you say?
Awesome. Well, the last thought is, when you're feeling stuck, do not be too hard on yourself. Just reset. Think about your progress that you made this far, and then who can you call, network to, reach out to help you to get to the next progress of your stage. It's always said that this is not a marathon, it's a sprint. Some people, can work a little bit faster depending on their situation. And you have to work at your own pace.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I put too much on myself, I overthink and can't think no more. I'm like, well, what was the step 1 in my analyzing this property? What was step 1? I forgot. Sometimes your brain get overloaded. So work at your own pace. Do not compare yourself with the next person, and get a good team behind you.
Yeah.
They necessarily don't have to invest with you, but just get somebody, a good team behind you to help lift you up, support you, and encourage you to keep on going.
Yeah. And share when you're feeling stuck, don't keep it. I know a lot of women can just keep everything inside. And then I get so frustrated. I'm like, oh, I'm frustrated. I didn't even know I was frustrated. Because you're moving so quickly. So yeah, be kind to yourself. Tanya, thanks so much for being on here with me. Last thing I wanted to share with everyone is we're doing this monthly. We're going to have different women on, just sharing some of their golden nuggets along their path. You don't need 1,000 units. You don't need 0 units to give some insight, because we're all on a journey and we're all moving forward. And that's what this community is all about. We have an event in March 25th. It's our first charity event, which is super cool. We're giving all the proceeds to Women for Women organization, who help women who are transitioning out of violence and war. It's a negotiation. It's from the team who brought never split the difference. So that's why the price tag is $150 and it's all going to charity. So if you guys can join us March 25th, it's going to be an amazing event. I'm so excited because I need to learn a lot when it comes to negotiation. But anyway, I wanted to mention that before I go. Tanya, thanks so much for being on with me. I love your ideas around feeling unstuck, and keep doing amazing things that you're doing there in Virginia Beach. And for ladies on here, take one thing you got from today, one thing, and put it into action and share with us on the community. We're here for you. We got your back. Me and Andressa read a lot of almost every post that's on our community. We're always jumping in. And Tanya will jump in too, and she starts to see the topic of feeling unstuck. So thank you, ladies, for being on. Appreciate you so much. Tanya, thanks for making time to be here, and thanks for all that you do.
Thank you. All right, ladies. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.